Very good
Okay.
evening. Very good evening, sir. Hearty welcome. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. To all the audience and students present here, introducing to you Dr. Ashok Dalwai. Dr. Ashok Dalwai is an IAS officer from 1984 batch. He served in the government of Karnataka and government of Odisha. From 2010, he's been with government of India. A very well-known name when it comes to issues in agriculture, agro-economy. He's pursued his PhD in economics and has served as chairman of Committee on Doubling Farmers' Income. He presently serves as the CEO of National Rainfed Area Authority, Government of India, to the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare. Especially at a time where the country is, India is largely an agricultural country in terms of the population dependent, with the farm laws and the debate around farm laws, the issues that Indian agriculture continues to face. There is never a wrong time to talk about agriculture. With the major audience amongst us, sir, being giving interview this time, they would have questions about how to answer specific questions about agriculture and farm laws. So it's a real pleasure and honor to host you and to have you amongst us, sir. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, especially in midst of your busy schedule to make time for us and young aspirants. It's a real heartening idea. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation once again, sir. I now hand over the session to you. You can address the session for a few minutes on highlighting on major issues, and then we will open the session for some questions from the audience.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I couldn't see the number of participants here. How many participants are there?
We have about 95, sir.
95. Prashant, good evening. Thank you for your kind words, and thank you all, boys and girls. First of all, let me beg pardon that I joined late. I was in another meeting and it got late to close, so I'm here late by almost half an hour. And secondly, let me congratulate all of you for having cleared 2 stages of the civil services exam. You have got through the prelims, then you got through the mains. You'll be now facing the interview board, which is the final stage. And both these stages are very tough ones, given the fact that we have lakhs of boys and girls appearing at the UPSC, that a few of you have managed to come through is a very, very tough distinction between the grain and the chaff. And it is not that those who are not made are chaff. They are also equally competent. It's a question of competition. And when it is competition with fixed number of vacancies, we only take that many as are required. But we all know that the competition is always so tough that on one mark there could be 100 candidates, or between the first ranker and the last ranker there could be very small range. So I would like to certainly congratulate you for making this grade, and those of you who are not made need not be disheartened. You can make another effort. So what I will do is to share with you a few thoughts on agriculture, and thereafter we can have Q&A, or even you can make observations. Now, how do we take up an agriculture, which is such a vast subject? So we'll try to focus on certain aspects. I mean, the current theme that's very critical in India's context, or what governments have been focusing on. When you go for an interview, what you would be expected is not just to give the facts and figures or some information. What you would be expected to give is interpretation. And based on those interpretations, what kind of thoughts you share and what kind of thoughts you'd like to implement. That is very, very critical. Giving facts, figures, information is all done through this exam that you have written. At the interview, your personality is being tested. And when we say personality, personality does not mean how you look. Personality means what your inner self is, what your character is, what your morale is, what your state of ethics is, what are you committed to, what do you want to do, what's your vision for the nation, for your society. So these are some of the features, characters, virtues, values that the interview board would be looking at. The purpose of interview is to study what you might be in terms of the job that you are applying for. What is your professional approach? What is your attitude? What is your aptitude? To test somebody's personality, we can have different methodologies. We can have different kinds of tests. Psychologists have developed large number of tests to assess the personality of a person. And one of the methods is to have an interview. An interview is not a Q&A session. An interview is more an interaction, an interface between two people, one sitting on this side of the table and the other on the other side of the table. As we talk, we make an assessment of the person. For example, as I'm speaking with you, at the end of it, you would have made some assessment of me. You would have gained some impression of me. You might say that he's good, he's bad, he's confident, he's diffident, he's gentlemanly, he's rash. You would have made some kind of an assessment as you hear to me today. So based on what the kind of words I use, based on the kind of sentences I use, based on the kind of language I use, based on the way I present myself, at the end of this talk, you would have made some assessment of my personality. So interface, interaction, interview, or whatever name you call it as, helps the examiners to assess what kind of a person you would be. Are you able to withstand the pressures? Are you able to negotiate the crisis? Are you able to foresee the problems? Is he a person who, given the problem, is able to answer it? Or is he a person who can foresee that this kind of a problem may come and therefore he is well prepared? When I keep using the word he, noun he, it includes she. So don't mind, the girls should not mind that I'm only addressing the boys. It's for both. So this is what your interview board is. If you don't know the answer, nothing wrong in saying, I'm sorry, I'm not able to get it, or I'm not able to immediately answer it. But honesty is also a part of a personality. Honesty is one of the great values that a civil servant is supposed to possess. So I won't get into that more today because I'm not here to talk to you about how to face an interview. Maybe we can talk some other day. I wanted to just start with this to tell you that the purpose of interview is very different, and therefore whether you talk of agriculture, industries, services, economy, society, politics, both at national level and the world level, global level, or at the state level, you must be prepared to interpret and share your observations, your thoughts, your views or comments on that. That's the purpose. Likewise, when you talk about agriculture today, I will not give you the facts and figures, for you would have known possibly better than me the facts and figures having studied for the civil services. What I will try to give you is an understanding of agriculture so that you are able to formulate your own views. I hope all of you are one with me so far. Prashant and others.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. So let me tell you so much that agriculture is something very critical for India. You must have heard of the figures that when we started in 1947 or 1951, we had 80% of our population dependent on agriculture. Today, as per the 2011 census, which holds more or less good even today, 48% of our population depends on agriculture. This 48% includes both farmers and landless agriculture labor. We have around 120 million or 12 crore farm households in this country, and 14 crore or 140 million landless agriculture labor. So together 26 crore or 260 million depends on agriculture directly and indirectly. When you say directly, that means all its livelihood options comes from agriculture, majorly. And when you say indirectly, they may be working on farms, may not be working on the farms, but they are working in activities related to farming, agriculture. So when we talk about 26 crore households, it is a very large number of our population in both absolute terms and in terms of ratio, in terms of percentage. It accounts for 48%. So if we have 132 crore population today, and when we talk about 48%, it is nearly 63 crore population. So this 63 crore population is dependent on agriculture primarily for livelihood, that means for jobs, and therefore incomes, because jobs and incomes go together. You can't have incomes without jobs. The only alternate way of having incomes without jobs is when government gives us some welfare support. That means more of a charity. But incomes that come from employment are more dignified, or you are the fruit of your own labor. So that is one thing that we should remember. The second point that I would like you to remember is that India's agriculture has grown robustly since 1951. If you compare the figures relating to output, for example, you will find that between 1951 and 2021, there is a very healthy or a robust growth. And this growth in agriculture is the result of three things. One is our science, that means our agricultural science has given us new technology, and therefore we are able to grow more and achieve more in terms of output. Second, it has been government's policies. No science and technology can be adopted by the people or the farmers unless there is a policy support. A policy makes it possible for us to adopt it. Along with policies go programs. Programs means it is a vehicle on which this particular initiative is transported. It costs money. So policies and programs of the government are the second pillar of success. Third one is the farmers themselves. Unless the farmers can show the ability to absorb the new technology, adopt the new programs, then there cannot be any result. What we therefore should realize is, unless we have these three, science and technology, government policies and programs, and the farmers as customers, as clients, absorbing that new technology and adopting the new practices, we cannot have success. If agriculture in India has grown over the last 70 years, it is because all these three have come together. If either of these is not in place, you cannot have a success. There can be a situation where farmers are willing to adopt the technology, government is willing to support it, but then there is no new technology. Or there is a new technology the scientists have given, but government is not willing to support. then also they cannot be a total success. So you should appreciate that if we want a particular success, and that success you can define. What do you mean by success? You might say, I want to travel 100 kilometers in 1 hour. That is your success parameter. Somebody else may say, I want to travel 20 kilometers in 1 hour. That is his success parameter. So whatever success parameter we have decided, we need all stakeholders to come together. That's called an ecosystem approach, a comprehensive approach. Somebody may ask you why this program is not succeeded. You may be asked in an interview, for example. Possibly the answer lies in the fact that all the stakeholders, all the partners, all the actors in that particular ecosystem who should have come together have not come together. It is possible. It could be in industry, it could be in general economy or agriculture. So here, agriculture succeeded because we had this. And that success in agriculture has been termed as green revolution. As you all know, in 1960s, 61, 62, 63, etc., there was a food shortage in India. Our population was growing, but the food sector was not growing at the same rate. So we came to a situation in 1965 where we had to borrow food from outside. And there was what is called PL 480, Public Ledger 480, signed by the United States House of Congress. And under that PL 480, food was given to India. So India was importing food from United States, and our consumers were waiting for that food. So that was a very shameful state. Now the response to that was to adopt new technology. And that new technology is what is called green revolution technology. What was it? New varieties of wheat and rice, because wheat and rice are the prominent crops. New varieties of wheat and rice were introduced into India. And these varieties, unlike our local varieties, were short in structure. That means they're dwarf varieties. Most important is they were highly responsive to use of inputs. And that was fertilizers, water, and other kinds of inputs. If you gave right quantity of inputs like fertilizers and water, the crop would produce better. And because our own varieties, local varieties, were very tall kinds of varieties, that means there is to be more of biomaterial, like leaf and stalk, etc., and less of grain size. But here we had better grain size, less of this, this leafy material. And then if our average yield was 1 ton in case of local paddy, this was able to give us 2 tons, 3 tons. Now we have reached 5 tons. So there are two things. New varieties which were responsive to intensive use of inputs. Of course, based on wheat and paddy, all other crops also we started developing new varieties. And therefore, within 7 years, it means by 1972, India became food sufficient. From food deficiency in 1965, we became food sufficient in 1972. So thereafter, our population has been growing, but we have been also able to produce equally. So agriculture thereafter focused more on what is called diversification. When I say diversification, we mean not grow just wheat and paddy, but also grow other crops. It could be jawar, it could be bajra, it could be ragi, or also diversify to horticulture, fruits, vegetables, etc. Also get into animal husbandry, get into fishery. There are many sectors. So after 1970s, or after particularly 1980s, after 1980, the focus has been on diversification of agriculture. Then come to 2000s, we had enough food, our buffer stock was growing. That means we were able to stock more food than we required. For example, there's something called a buffer norm. The buffer norm is normally we should be storing about 36 million tons of food to meet the contingencies. But then we have reached 70 tons, 70 million tons, 80 million tons. That means much more than what we require to store because we have that much of production. So in the year 2000s, the focus now was more of diversification into horticulture and simultaneously think of helping the farmer to get better markets. That was a sign that we have moved from subsistence economy to market economy. When you say subsistence economy, that means farmer is growing to subsist. But when you make it market economy, the farmer is now producing to sell after he meets his own requirements. And this particular phenomena is substantiated by the fact that when we started in 1951 or 60s or 70s, the farmer had to keep 80% of what he grew for his own consumption. That means if I grew 10 quintals of jawar, I will keep at least 80 quintals for my own family, 8 quintals for my own family, I'll sell 2 quintals. In the first place, I was not growing 10 quintals because my production was so low. I needed all that to consume at home. I was not having enough to sell. But once the yields went up, I'm not going to eat 2 times in any case. I will eat what I need. Now I had more to sell. So what happened by 2000s? The productivity is growing. Each farmer was able to sell, was producing more. After meeting his consumption, he was able to sell. So he was able to keep around 40%, that was enough, and the rest he was able to sell. If he wants to sell, he should be able to sell at good rates. If he does not get good rates in the market, then naturally he meets a loss. So in 2000s onwards, the greater focus we started bringing on diversification into horticulture and other sectors, was also trying to improve the market structure. Now, whether we succeeded or not is another aspect. So it appears that after 2010, for example, or 2015, for example, that we had not succeeded very much in ensuring that the farmers were getting enough from this. The 2011 census, 2012-13 census, there is a, that there's a decadal census, you must be all knowing, that every 10 years we hold a census for population, other data, literacy, etc., etc. There's also what is called an agricultural census. The agriculture census is also conducted normally, can be done once in 5 years or once in 10 years, but generally once in 10 years. So for the agricultural year 2012-13, as you know, financial year is April to March, calendar year is January to December, agriculture year is from July to June. Okay, so the agricultural year 2012-13 means from July 2012 to June 2013, the census conducted, that is called a Situation Assessment Survey, SAS, a Situation Assessment Survey conducted by what is called NSSO, National Sample Survey Organization, or it is, you can say, called National Statistical Organization. NSO conducts this, and they follow what is called NSSO, National Sample Survey Organization. So they showed that the farmers' income was very poor. What was the income of the farmers? It was rupees 6,426 per month per agriculture household. See, every farmer average in India, as per 2012-13 SAS, earned a small pittance of rupees 6,426. And what was his expenditure? That is called average consumption expenditure. The same survey showed average consumption expenditure of a farm household was 6,203. That means if you subtract this from 6,426, he was left with rupees 203. So what does it mean? Is rupees 6,426 in 2012 enough for a agriculture household to live a dignified life? That was the question. But also remember, this is an average. Isn't average means average. So you will have somebody earning much more, somebody earning much less. So what we found was that the large farmers, they were able to earn much more compared to the marginal farmers. And a small farmer is somebody who owns 2 hectares of rainfed area or 1 hectare of irrigated area. A marginal farmer, he just owns 1 hectare of the rainfed area. So marginal farmers and small farmers are majority in our country. Of those 120 million farm households, small and marginal farmers account for 86%. 86%. If you take only the marginal farmers, they account for 65%. That means majority of the 120 million farmers in our country are marginal in nature. They own less, 1 hectare maximum or much less than 1 hectare. If you own such a small piece of land, naturally you cannot get high income. So we found, the essay showed that marginal farmers and small farmers are not able to earn enough for a dignified living. You should also remember, when you say farmers' income, they may ask you, what do you mean by farmers' income? So farmers' income comprises 2 things. That is farm income, non-farm income. Please remember this, farm income, non-farm income. The meaning is rupees 6,426 that the farmers earned on an average in the year 2012-13 comprised farm income, non-farm income. And this ratio, average ratio between farm income and non-farm income was 60:40 approximately. It was actually 59:41, but take it as 60:40. That means 6,426 can be divided in the ratio of 60% farm income, 40% non-farm income. So what does that mean? Non-farm income includes various sources of income. As you have seen in villages, some lady has got a small corner shop. She buys from the wholesale and sells some small tea powder or all kinds of assortments. Or somebody in the house is working as some security guard somewhere. Somebody is working as a teacher or doing some other work. So these are all non-farm incomes. Or somebody goes and works as an unskilled worker under the Narega, MG Narega. So all these incomes when added to the income that you get from farm, that together becomes a farmer's income. So this shows that incomes from the farms are very poor. I want you to remember here also that in case of large farmers, the farm income was 85%, non-farm income dependence was only 15%. But in the case of marginal farmers, farm income was only 35%, non-farm income was 65%. What is the implication? That means marginal farmers who account for 65% in our country, they are not able to get enough from the farms. They have to go and work outside. Only then they can earn something. So this shows that where agriculture in India had grown well, the farmers had not benefited. Are you one with me so far? All of you, anybody?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Perfect.
All right. Okay, good. So what I'm trying to say is that we have moved from food deficiency to food sufficiency to ultimately arrive at a stage where we produced more, but then farmers are not benefiting. That means agriculture has grown, but farmers have not benefited. Now, is it important that farmers benefit? That's the question. Answer is yes. The reason is if I come to work for government, I'll work provided I get enough salary. If I go to a factory to work, I'll go there provided I get enough salary, wages. If I am putting up an industry, I'll be there provided I'm able to generate profit. So if a labor in industry, if a manager of an enterprise If an employee of a government or if an employee in a private sector or a corporate sector is always considering whether he's getting enough so that he can work, why not farmers? Are farmers meant only to produce for others, or are they also to get some profit? Therefore, in 2015-16, we have moved from production-centered agriculture, that is production-centric agriculture, to income-centric agriculture. So here, when you say income-centric agriculture, the purpose is as we produce food and other kinds of agricultural commodities, we must also take care to see that farmers get enough income from that. That is called income-centric approach. Simultaneously, please remember that while income deficiency has been one of the negative fallouts of our agriculture growth, there has also been a negative impact of the agriculture growth on ecology, or more specifically the production environment. Because ecology will constitute many factors. So for agriculture is concerned directly the production environment. What do you mean by production environment? If agriculture requires soil, it requires water, it requires, of course, a good environment around. So what has happened? Now, green revolution, I told you, was based on what is called intensive use of inputs. If you give more fertilizers, we get better yields. Good water, better yields. So in result, we found that green revolution used so much of inputs, chemical fertilizers and water, that soils got disturbed. If you use more chemical fertilizers, more than required, when I say more means more than required for the soil becomes what is called acidic. It becomes alkaline. It becomes barren. That means it loses its fertility. Microorganisms die. Earthworms are not there. So soil biology gets disturbed. If soil biology gets disturbed, then the yields start dropping. And in economics, they say decreasing marginal rate of returns. Those are students of agriculture economics or even in basic economics would have been taught in agriculture universities. For one, if you want to get 1 unit of additional yield, suppose I want to get 1 quintal more from my field, what is the quantum of inputs I should use? Because soil has become barren, I need to use more and more inputs to get that one incremental growth in productivity. That is called decreasing marginal rate of returns. So our soils have been subjected to or suffering from what is called decreasing marginal rate of returns. So what we find today is in India, out of 141 million hectares of arable land, that means the cultivable land extent in India is 141 million. It has come down to 140 million hectares. Take it as 140. Out of these 140 million hectares, 24 million hectares have become problem soils. These are called problem soils. They are suffering from acidity, alkalinity, and other kinds of soil problems. So imagine 24 million hectares have become problem soils. That was one. Second one was water problem. Why? We needed more water. So where do you get water from? Water can come from precipitation. That is rainfall. There are two kinds of precipitation. It can be monsoon, it can be snowfall. But monsoon is a major. 96% of our precipitation, our water comes from rainfall precipitation, not from snowfall. There's only 6%. So that is a different matter. Now, if we wanted to spend more, give irrigation to the farmers, we had to build irrigation dam. So India has built large number of major irrigation projects, medium irrigation projects, and minor irrigation projects, and also micro irrigation structure. That means the water harvesting structure, a small lake, a small pond. These are all called as micro irrigation structures. But minor, medium, and major, these are predominant. So now, these along with groundwater, using a bore well, for example, a tube well, an open well, we extract the water from the ground. So India's irrigation is supported by these two: surface water, groundwater. Surface water means from irrigation dams. Groundwater means through bore wells, tube wells, open wells, etc. Today in India, we have around 68 million hectares under irrigation. Out of 140 million hectares, around 68 million hectares is under irrigation. Now, this irrigation is from surface water and groundwater. So please remember this, very important. 60% of the irrigation is from groundwater. So if I take 68 million hectares as the area irrigated, 60% of this comes from groundwater, which means that all our irrigation structures, let us say in Karnataka, Sagar or Tungabhadra, Almaty, all these things together, Gadaprabha, Malaprabha, all these things together, and many such dams, Bakranangal here, all these together give us only 40%. Of course, there are many medium and minor. So now, because we are dependent on groundwater, we have been extracting so much of water from the ground that today the water table has gone down. And when you go deeper and deeper into the soil, you are actually adding toxic to the soil water, because after all, what is groundwater? Groundwater is nothing but water stored in the aquifers. Those aquifers are emptying. After all, like in computer language, they say garbage in, garbage out. That means input and output have to be always balanced. Groundwater can be sustained only when you are adding more water to it. But now we have not been able to capture the rainwater properly. There is no proper water management. So there is not much of a percolation, much of infiltration. But we are drawing more. We add 1 unit, but draw 2 units. So in result today, in Punjab, Indo-Gangetic Plain, in South India, the water table has gone down. So we have lost water. So what does it mean? When soil and water are under stress, we cannot grow enough. And I must tell you that of the 140 million hectares, 52% of our area is a rain-fed area. That means rain-fed areas where there is no dependable source of water, either groundwater or surface water, is called a rain-fed area. It depends totally on monsoons. So we were talking about green revolution in irrigated areas. In rain-fed areas, what happens? Since we are dependent on rainfall all the time, if it rains in time, rains adequately, we can grow a crop. But nobody can assure us that. So because there is what is called as variation in the weather pattern, the farmers may not be sure of growing. They may sow the seeds, but if there is no rainfall, the whole thing will die. It may have germinated, there is no water, then it will die. So at any stage, there is a vulnerability. So please remember that because of the climate change, the rainfall extremes or weather variations have increased. You must have seen yourself, either there is a total drought or there is a flood in the same area. So this is what is called the implication, outcome of a climate change. There is no proper distribution. While our monsoon, southwest monsoon is 4 months, for example, what we are seeing today is shrinking to around 65 days. So that means more water falls. There is no reduction in the quantum of rainfall. Quantum of rainfall is there, but it drops down heavily during short period of time. That means there is no proper distribution, whereas crops are normally 4 months. So if you don't get well spread out rainfall, then the crops cannot be good. So that is another thing that I want to know. So the three factors which have impacted agriculture: climate change, water, and soil. So these things are impacting agriculture negatively. Now the other factor that we should remember is that if this kind of vulnerability is there, what do we do to increase the incomes of the farmers? So now you have heard of doubling farmers' income approach. When you say doubling farmers' income, essentially it is farmers' income approach. Doubling farmers' income is a quantifiable target. In the year 2016 Feb, the Honorable Prime Minister announced at Bareilly in Uttar Pradesh that my vision is to double the income to the farmers. And thereafter, in the budget of 2016, the government announced that yes, government is now doubling the incomes of the farmers that is the strategy. And thereafter, a committee was constituted. It's called Interministerial Committee in April 2016. Okay, more precisely on April 13th, 2016. And this interministerial committee, that means we had members from different ministries. We also had non-members, non-official members. That means we had member of parliament, etc., etc. We had people from all over the country. And this committee, I had the privilege of chairing it. So this committee worked on the strategy for doubling farmers' income by 2022. So what are the main features of this? The main features are, if 2016-17 is the starting year, that is the starting line for the race. 2022 is the end phase. That means this in 6 to 7 years, we have to double the income. And doubling against what? So we took the year 2015-16 as that means the previous year as the benchmark year, threshold year. What was the income of the farmers in the year 2015-16? And how that should double in 2022. As I told you, the agriculture census or survey was done in 2012-13. We didn't have figures for 2015-16. So our committee extrapolated the figures available for the year 2012-13 to year 2015-16 in what is called real terms. You know that in pricing there are two types: nominal price, real price. So nominal price is that every year there is a price change. We don't account for the inflation. That's called nominal. Even if I don't do anything, my income would be higher because inflation is there. But real terms means keeping that inflation constant. What does the value of the money constant? What does it mean at the end date? So at 2015-16 prices, we found on extrapolation that incomes of the farmers was approximately 98,000. I don't have the correct figure. It is there in the book, you can see. It was around 98,000 per annum. Average income of the farmers was rupees 98,000 in the year 2015-16. Now, our committee said we need to double this in 2022. But doubling means not 98,000 into 2. That is how much? 1,96,000, right? 1,96,000. No, we are now talking in real terms. In real terms means not at the price of 2022, but at the price of 2015-16. That is called real price, real terms. So here our committee has said there are what are called 7 sources of growth. How does income change? When we say income approach to change, it means not just increasing the productivity. Yes, if I'm getting 10 quintals of paddy, suppose I get 20 quintals, you might say my income has doubled. No. I may not be able to increase to 20 from 10. I may be able to increase from 10 to 12, for example. But if I adopt other measures, the same 12 may be giving me higher incomes. Or even if I stay put at 10, I have not increased any productivity. I was 10, I will remain at 10. But if I adopt other measures, my income will certainly be much more than what I was getting so far. That is called income approach. What is that? Income approach. So there are 3 principles. what is the profit from an enterprise, whether you're running a shop or industry or agriculture? First is, what is your total output? That means total volume of production. Second is, what is the cost of production? Third one is, what prices are you getting on your volume of production? So 3 variables. If I have 1 acre of land, what is the total production? What was the cost of that production? And what was the price in the market I got on my produce? So what do I do here? Let us assume, for argument's sake, that my production is not increased. I have 10 quintals, I stay at 10 quintals. But now I am using new technology and I am producing the same 10 quintals at lesser price. That means I am reducing my cost of cultivation, cost of production. Third, the markets are better. If I was getting rupees 2,000 per quintal of jawar, and because of better market returns, I get 2,200. So what happens now? I'm getting better return. So the income approach to agriculture is to emphasize on all the 3. Try to increase the volume through productivity, decrease the cost of cultivation, increase the prices. Okay, these are the 3 things. So based on these three things, our committee suggested 7 principles, or what are called 7 sutris, or 7 interventions, 7 sources of growth. The first source is increase the productivity of the crops, because agriculture means crops is very important. Crop is very important. So if average yield is, suppose, let us say 1 ton per hectare in the country, we want to make it 1.2 tons or 1.3 tons. So increase the productivity of the crops. That's the first strategy. Second is increase the productivity of the livestock, because livestock also is a part of agriculture. Third one is increase the cropping intensity. What is meaning of cropping intensity? On the same 1 acre of land that I have, I can either grow 1 crop or 2 crops or 3 crops. I can grow 1 crop easily, that is because I get rainfall. But can I grow 2nd crop? I can do, provided I get some support of water. Can I grow 3rd crop? I can get, provided I get still support of water. And also I'm able to get shorter duration crops. If I have a crop that is 6 months, I cannot grow more than 2 crops a year. If your crop is 2 months old, I can grow many times, like vegetables are grown many times. So third one is increasing cropping intensity. That means on the same piece of land, I'm growing more and more. For example, in India today, the cropping intensity in India is 154%. That means 140 million hectares is actually around 200 million hectares, because it's 154. I'm using same piece of land more times in certain pockets of the country. So at 154% cropping intensity, the total area, that's called gross area under cultivation, is nearly 194 million hectares. So net cultivated area is 140 million hectares, but gross cultivated area is 194 million hectares. That is very important. Now, how do I make it 300 million hectares? That is a strategy. So third one is increasing cropping intensity. And the fourth one is reduce cost of production. That means for better use of water, better use of fertilizers, better use of pesticide, better use of labor, farm machinery. Adopt new technologies and reduce the cost of production. That is the fourth one. And the fifth one is how do we increase the remunerative prices for the farmers? That means how do you improve the market environment? That is very, very important. Okay. And one more is how do you shift the people from agriculture to non-agricultural activities? Why is this important? I told you that 48% of our people are dependent on agriculture. 120 million farmers are there. Now it's not easy to increase the wealth so much so in agriculture that we can double the income of the farmers so easily. You know, wealth is numerator, number of farmers are new denominator. If the numerator can increase by x plus something, if denominator does not change, or rather denominator increases, then average income will still remain the same. So we need to shift some manpower from agriculture to non-agriculture. And that happens provided our industry grows, service sector grows, because they also need labor. So surplus manpower, which is available in agriculture, should be shifted to non-agriculture. Then as we increase the numerator, the denominator decreases, then there will be better average incomes. So this was a strategy that we have suggested, and all the programs, policies are working along these things. So now I talked to you about income approach to agriculture, and I told you those three things: increasing the volume of production, decreasing the cost of production, and increasing the prices of the market for the farmers. But I was also telling you there are two other problems with agriculture arising from climate change. Therefore, our principal said, along with these three things, also focus on two more things. What is that? One is risk management. One is risk management. And that risk management is because agriculture is very much vulnerable to climate change, weather patterns, temperature, etc. We need to have risk management tools. For example, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is a crop insurance scheme. Whatever you do, there will be failures. So if we have something like insurance scheme, then if the farmer has bought a premium and if he suffers loss, he will get compensation. Likewise, livestock insurance is another activity. So you can insure your livestock. Now, these are called financial approach to risk management, because we enable the farmers to buy a premium and get compensated in case of loss. But there are some non-financial risk management tools also. What are those things? Why does risk come if the rains fail or rains don't come in the right time? How does the farmer know that rains are going to fail? That is called weather forecasting. So if I am able to forecast the weather and I share that information with the farmers, then the farmer will be better prepared to sow. Instead of sowing tomorrow, if I have told him tomorrow you will not get rainfall, next 1 week, please postpone your sowing, then he will postpone that. That means he has now covered the risk. So non-financial risk management tools are forecasting methods, forecasting of weather, forecasting of a pest, forecasting of a disease, forecasting of a price, etc., etc. So there can be financial and non-financial routes to covering the risk. And other one is sustainable technology. That means now I told you that we must not be using extra fertilizer. So how do you ensure sustainable technologies? That comes from evidence. What is evidence? I have got my soil, for example. I must add fertilizer based on the need, which means that does my soil contain nitrogen? If it contains, how much does it contain? If it's not containing, what is the deficiency? Likewise, phosphate, fertilizer, all kinds of nutrients. Like your blood test report. Only when you test your bloods, you know what to do. Are you a sugar patient or not a sugar patient? So likewise, our soils also, we need to test them. And that is called, for that government has got what is called a soil health card system. That means the farmer's soil is tested and he is told, this is your analysis, this is your status. You add fertilizer as required. Don't add more or don't add less. So likewise, this is just one example I gave you. Likewise, using water properly. Instead of flooding, I use micro irrigation. I use organic farming systems, natural farming systems. So these are different technologies. Anyway, the idea is that through this income approach, I aim at doubling the farmers' income in 2022 compared to what it was in 2015-16. But generically, it is what is called income approach. It's not that 2022 comes and after that we'll stop. No. We will continue to achieve that income approach, adopt an income approach. The last point that I must tell you, then we'll open it to Q&A, is that agriculture is not just crops. India's agriculture, India is a very diverse country in terms of climate. It has got all ecologies. It has got 121 types of agro-ecologies. Agro-ecology system, sorry. We have got arid zones, For example, Rajasthan. We've got semi-arid zones like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka. We have got temperate climate like Himachal Pradesh or Himalayan states. We've got sub-temperate climates. So we have got different ecological zones in our country, which means we can grow different kinds of activities, take up different kinds of activities. So agriculture consists of different subsectors. One is agronomic crops, that means all field crops, all kinds of cereals, pulses, oil seeds, commercial crops like sugarcane, cotton, jute. These are all agronomic crops, seasonal crops. Second one is horticulture. Under horticulture, again, you got 6 segments. That's a different matter. You got fruits, vegetables, medicinal plants, aromatic plants, plantations like coffee, tea. So horticulture. Third one is livestock and dairy, that is animal husbandry. Under that, we have got so many things again. We got poultry, piggery, small ruminants like sheep and goat, large ruminants like buffalo and cattle, animal husbandry in short. And then fisheries, water bodies, because India has large number of water bodies, both inland as well as marine. We've got 8,400 kilometers of coastline. Very few countries have this kind of a length. So India has got that richness of diversity, where it can grow all kinds of commodities, agriculture commodities. So agriculture means not just crops. So one of the ways of risk management is to diversify. That means the farmer, instead of growing only jawar, only ragi, or only sugarcane, he grows different crops. He also keeps dairy, he keeps poultry. That is called diversification of production system. And this is what is called integrated farming system. That means integrate on the same farm, you are taking up different activities. That is integrated farming system. Now, India needs to focus more on horticulture, livestock, and fisheries. From beginning, our focus has been on crops. But the advantage is the growth potential today exists more in animal husbandry, more in fisheries, more in horticulture, less in this crop segment. So if we want to increase the incomes of the farmers, if we want to increase the wealth in the agriculture sector, we must use the potential that exists in these sectors: livestock, dairy, fishery, poultry, etc. So what is India doing? In 2005-06, we adopted a new initiative called MITH, or National Mission on Horticulture, NHM, National Horticulture Mission. And since 2005-06 to 2020-21, there has been a very good growth in horticulture sector. Today, we have 26 million hectares of area under horticulture. Of the 140 million hectares, 26 is under horticulture. In 2005-06, it was only 16 million hectares. That means we added 10 million hectares. And the output of horticulture has grown tremendously. Today, the production of horticulture is 325 million hectares, or million tons. Food grains is 305 million tons. That means today the output of horticulture is more than that of the food grains. Whereas in 2005-06, the output of food grains was more than horticulture. For the first time in 2014-15, rather 2013-14, horticulture production and food grain production equaled. That means from 2005-06, because of the National Horticulture Mission, the output of horticulture kept growing. It equaled the food grain production in 2014, and thereafter it has started overtaking food grains. And 2020-21, it, as I told you, stands at 325 million tons as against 305 million tons for food grains. That means now horticulture will keep growing. Similarly, milk production, for example, it is now 181 million tons. We were only 51 million tons in 1951. And India is the number one in the whole world in respect of milk output. So you must remember, not only from the perspective of diversification as a risk management, but also from the perspective utilizing the potential, we must now focus on these things. So what has government done? It has started allocating more money to the sectors. Earlier, we had only one Ministry of Agriculture. The last year, the ministry was divided into two: Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Other one was Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry, and Animal Husbandry. That means in order to give greater attention, earlier that was one department under the Ministry of Agriculture. Now that department has been made a ministry independently. There's a separate minister for that, so that we can utilize the potential. So this is how greater focus is being brought on these sectors. The last one I must tell you, wanted to know about the farm laws. Since one of our interests is to improve the market environment. So far, the marketing was confined only to the APMCs. That means farmers had to go to APMCs. APMCs are regulated markets. Farmers are not allowed to sell outside APMCs. So now the new law, Farmers Produce Trade Promotion and Facilitation Act, FPTC in short, it now allows farmers to sell anywhere they want to. They can sell even outside APMC, but it does not mean they cannot go to APMC. They can go to APMC if they get a better price. So as if, for example, in one village, there are two shops. Then you can go to either of the shops where you get a better rate. If there's only one shop, that man becomes a monopoly. So FPTC has been precisely brought so that we are able to have alternate transactions. Farmers have a choice. And since the trade was restricted earlier, today it is one, because it's a central act, the nation becomes one market. One nation, one market. So that what is grown in a village, for example, in Chitradurga district, can be sold in Delhi. So wherever there is a demand, one can send it. So therefore, the new act, it enables the farmers freedom to sell anywhere. The other act, of course, is related to what is called as contract farming. There's a bigger name, you can see that, but it is essentially a contract farming act. Contract farming means before you start production, you can enter into a contract or agreement with a buyer who promises to give you X amount on your produce after the harvest. Because when you produce, you don't know what the prices will be after harvesting. You may think when you are sowing or planting that I may get good rate, but by the time you harvest, your prices may have fallen down. If you have entered into a contract with somebody, then you will definitely get that rate. That is called contract farming. So that way your risk is being transferred. And the third act is amendment to the Essential Commodities Act. Essential Commodities Act 1954 was precisely putting certain restrictions on the quantum you can store. If you want to have a free market, then you should allow the traders to buy any quantum. Otherwise, there is no meaning. But our Essential Commodities Act said you cannot store beyond certain levels. So why will I buy from you if there's a restriction on me to store it? So it was natural that Essential Commodities Act also had to be amended so that there is no restriction on the quantity to be purchased by a trader, quantity to be stored by a trader and sold whenever he wants to. So these three amendments have come in 2020 and they are expected to help in creating a better market, a competitive market, a transparent market. Okay, so there's so much more to talk about agriculture. Just I have only given you a brief outline, but I want to end up by saying that agriculture has got a future, and that future, according to me, comes from the ability of agriculture to be a renewable source of raw materials. Today, our entire economy is based on fossil fuels. We draw petroleum products, we draw coal, iron ore, bauxite, copper, all these things from the Mother Earth. All these raw materials have been formed over millions of years. And we have been exhausting them very quickly. And that is also adding to climate change. What happens after we exhaust those things? Whereas if you start using the raw materials from agriculture, you can use them and again grow them. Let us say I'll make cardboards. I'll make paper, for example. Paper is made using bamboo or other kind of timber. I can again grow that. Now I can produce methane using the biomaterial, bioproduct, sorry. I can produce ethanol from sugar cane juice. I can keep on growing sugar cane. So today, the advancement in science, in the field of bioscience, in the bioengineering, bioprocessing, biotechnology, now helps us to produce bioenzymes, biomaterials. I can produce enzymes either using, chemicals, or I can do them from using biological products. So we can enter into a new phase called bioeconomy. That means my economy, my industry will be based not on fossil fuels or fossil resources, but on biologically generated, produced from the farms, from the forest. So that is a bioeconomy. And that bioeconomy is based on what is called circular economy, because it's not an end of term. If I draw the iron ore, I use once, it's over. That's called end of term. But here it is circular economy. Because there is greater scope now to produce our new products based on using raw materials generated in the farm, we can enter into a phase of circular economy. So there will be more and more demand. Today there is limited demand, limited to people who want to buy food or wanting to buy fodder. But if industries start demanding the agriculture produce, the farmers can produce more and sell better. There will be more competition. So we are achieving two things. One, bioeconomy. Second, better prices for the farmers, because there is a new demand. So therefore, the whole world is slowly graduating into bioeconomy. Like we have said, now 10% of ethanol can be mixed in the petroleum products. Earlier it was 5%. We'll soon have 20%. So we don't have to import petrol from outside. To that extent, it's neutralized. Some countries have started using nearly 50%. That means we need new technology. Hence, bioeconomy based on agriculture and forests will be the future. And if that happens, it's good for agriculture, good for all of us. So I will stop here, and you can now, make your comments, or you can ask me questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. That was very much in detailed and attention to all the specifics and a version of the farm laws from the government side or the thinker side, which gives us an insight to understand the other version also, when there has been a lot of opposition to the farm laws across. The session now is open for questions and observations. As sir has said, we request all aspirants, specifically those who are giving your personality test this time, to take your turns and raise your questions. Sagar, you have raised your hand. You can go ahead asking the first question.
Thank you, sir, for your lecture, sir. Sir, I want to ask, what changes government could have done so that the farm bills could have been well received by the farmers?
Yeah, see, I can only tell you, just to help you to answer your questions. See, one is that maybe there could have been a greater participation of the people in formulation of the laws. Normally, what is the process? We draft the law, then put it on the website, share it with the state governments, and ask for comments. So maybe we did it in rush because COVID was there. We thought that, the supply chains had broken down. So we needed to enable the farmers to start selling quickly to anyone, and therefore it was brought in a hurry. But what I can foresee is that had we shared that, we make the people feel, our different stakeholders feel that their points also have been taken into consideration, then possibly that discussion, consultation would have created a different perception. It would have been a participative approach. And therefore, there could have been less resistance. And then, in any case, based on the protest, government has been always keeping the mind open and has told them that you can come and discuss. And then the farmers have pointed out certain inadequacies in the law. And government has said, I'm willing to accept those things. What is that, for example? Our central trade law said there shall be no fee levied on the transaction. That means traders need not pay any fee. Whereas in APMCs, the traders who purchase are supposed to pay some percentage as fee to the market committee. So this may result in a unequal situation. That means if the traders on the APMCs are supposed to pay, then naturally they will not give that much of price to the farmers. Whereas outside the APMCs, if they don't have to pay any, then they can pay a little more to the farmers. But then that means the trade will happen only outside, but not at APMCs. That means it's an unequal situation. This is one example. Therefore, you can only say so much that maybe we should have adopted a more consultative, participative approach to adoption of the laws. So, if everybody felt, then farmers in particular felt that my voice has been heard, then maybe there could have been less resistance. However, you can say that it was happy that government has agreed to listen to the farmers, and whatever inadequacies or shortcomings they feel are there, they're willing to adopt those into the laws. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Pramod Aradhya, go next.
Good evening, sir. My question is that there is a debate that MSP is leading to preventing the crop diversification and also incentivizing farmers to exploit more from the soil or ecology. So, in this context, what is the future of MSP, or should it be abolished in the long run?
Yeah, one is, you are right, you asked a very relevant question and you understood the issue. Now, what happens is that if we have very efficient marketing system, then the farmers will participate in the markets, and if there is a competition, free and fair competition, prices will be discovered and farmers will get the right price. But one thing that we must remember, the markets are never fair anywhere. In economics, they say, is it a perfect market or imperfect market? A market is said to be perfect when all the stakeholders, both buyers and sellers, are equal knowledge, when all the traders are equally competent, when both have access to information, when infrastructure is very good, etc., etc. But this is only theoretical, right? What is the reality? Reality is farmers will not have any information about the prices. What is the price in America? What is the price in Delhi? What is the price in Bangalore? He doesn't know. Or he knows, but then he has no transport system to carry. So this is what is called imperfect system. So markets now are never perfect. Because markets are generally not perfect, there cannot be a competitive price discovery. Price discovery happens based on demand and supply. So if I as a trader know that tomorrow the prices are likely to rise or there is a better demand in Kanpur, I'll buy at low rate, store it and take it there. Because the markets are not perfect, the prices fluctuate. Agriculture markets in particular are more imperfect than markets in industry. Because industry, what happens? Suppose I'm a car manufacturer. If I see the prices are falling, I'll stop my manufacture. If I see there's a more demand, I'll produce more. But in agriculture, you cannot do that because it's all season bound. If I have sown jawar, I cannot change it to wheat. Or I cannot produce more jawar if there's a demand. That is the intrinsic nature of agriculture. So please remember, you can tell that agriculture markets are highly fluctuating in nature. Agriculture markets are not perfect. It is very difficult to discover prices through a competitive system, and therefore the farmers need to be supported through a government intervention. And that is called minimum support price. So a combination of minimum support price and a market structure, free market, is likely to give better prices to the farmers. However, the MSP system should not be lopsided. What is the meaning of that? Announcing MSP is one thing, but more important is what's called procurement. What is the meaning of MSP? When we announce MSP before the cropping season, we are sending two messages to the farmer. One is that this is the price signal. If I say 1,970, for example, for quintal of jawar, I'm just giving example, that's not the right figure. Then the farmer knows I might get this figure, this rate, and should I grow or not, I will decide. Second one is, it is an assurance to the farmers that if the markets are not able to discover this price for you, I will come and procure for you. Right? So with that assurance, farmer goes for production. Unfortunately, what has happened? We have not been procuring all the commodities for which we announced the MSP. We announced MSP for 25 commodities, Kharif, Rabi, and annual crops. And there are, for example, 14 Kharif crops. And then there are 2 annual crops like sugarcane and jute, and the remaining are Rabi crops. But mostly procurement has been in paddy and wheat. Very less of other procurements have happened. In the last 6 years, of course, we adopted a new scheme called PM Asha. As you know, paddy and wheat are procured by FCI, Food Corporation of India. So through the new scheme called PM Asha, pulses, oil seeds are also being procured to some extent. Like pulses, around 18% of the total production. Oil seeds around 10 to 11% of the total production, whereas in paddy, wheat and paddy is 33%. So what happens is, as you rightly said, if my crop is being, my commodity is being procured, then I'm sure to get something, so I keep on growing that more. So this is the reason why in Punjab or Haryana or Western Uttar Pradesh, people have been growing more and more wheat and paddy and extracting water. So as you rightly said, water has been extracted, soils have got spoiled, and ecologically it is not sound. And simultaneously other crops reduce, like what has happened, let's say jawar, what are called millets, jawar, bajra, ragi. There are of course 9 millets. These millets area has come down drastically over the last few decades. From 43 million hectares under millets in 1981, it has come down to around 17 million hectares. That means less than half. Whereas in rainfed areas, we should be growing more of these because they are more resilient to drought. They use less water. But why does farmer not grow? Because he is not sure that it will be procured, or the yields are not as good as in wheat and paddy. So you're right that MSP system needs to be made more egalitarian. That means more equitable. I assure the farmers that I procure everything, not everything, anything that you grow to some extent. So in the recent years, if you have seen Odisha, Karnataka, they have started procuring some ragi. They started procuring ragi. Like you must have seen in South Karnataka, ragi is now being utilized in the midday meal scheme. Ragi is also being sold through the public distribution system. So if we can strengthen the procurement of pulses, oil seeds, millets, then naturally those crops also will pick up. So you can say only so much that yes, MSP is necessary because agriculture markets can never be perfect. We cannot ask the farmers to depend only on markets. They must also have the government intervention. But simultaneously, we should make the MSP and the related procurement more egalitarian, more secular, more universal. Then I think everything will bring it in alignment with ecology. Okay?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
That
sir.
almost
Sorry for asking more questions, sir. There is another problem that in agriculture there is a problem of bringing technology from lab to the land. India is facing that problem. So how can we tackle in that area?
See, one is that, yes, there are problems, but India has succeeded in transferring technology. If India had not succeeded in transferring technology to the farmers, we would not have had the green revolution. However, what you are asking is, how do you bridge that gap between the development of technology at the research labs and transferring that to the farms? So we need very strong extension system. Extension means to extend. It is extension that enables to transfer technology from the research fields to the farms. So today what we can do is have an optimal blend of manual extension and technology-based extension. Today we have digital technology. So if you purely depend on manual-based extension, one is very costly. Second is it is slow. Suppose I want to share the information on about weather forecast. If it is only manual based, the data will go from Delhi to Bangalore, Bangalore to Belgaum, Belgaum to Gokak, Gokak to some next village. How much time will it take? But if I use digital technology, in one moment I will just transmit that, broadcast that information through my SMS application, a mobile-based application. At one point, once with a click of a button, I can share it with all the farmers. So it is possible to combine this extension through manpower and digital technology and reach out to the farmers. There will be some things which I need to contact personally, so that I need to talk to the individual farmer. So either I make a home contact, or I have a group contact, or a mass contact. I can use the radio, I can use television. Whereas the digital technology, it helps in real data transfer, real-time data transfer. So I think extension can be that, and of course simultaneously, we can have both public extension systems and private extension systems. There are many farmers today who are, particularly in horticulture, dairy, who are willing to pay for the services. So many, we can now also promote private people to youngsters, youth, to set up extension services. Of course, paid service, like if it is extension system of a particular state, that will be free service. But if it is a private clinic, it will be a paid service, like doctors, government hospitals free, private doctor you pay. So likewise, agriculture extension can also be both public extension system and private extension system. Those who can afford to pay, they can go and pay and get the services. It can be a customized service. So in short, you can only say that agriculture universities, and then Krishi Vigyan Kendras, they all need to play a greater role in transfer of technology. We need a more robust agriculture extension system, which is based on manpower as well as the new technology. Digital technology is the future. We have got drones, we have got artificial intelligence, we have got Internet of Things called IoT, we have got sensors, we got statistical models to analyze and interpret the data so that we can have pest forecasting, disease forecasting, weather forecasting. So all these things will help in making a very robust transfer of technology to the farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a very detailed insight again. Preksha Jain, we have last two questions, sir. Sagar has one more question. So after that, we have last two questions. Sorry for holding you up, sir. Preksha Jain, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Sir, thank you for your valuable session. Sir, I have a doubt related to the target of doubling farmers' income. So now there is less than 1 year to achieve that target. So it's generally asked, is it feasible to double the farmer income by 2022? And what is the current status of agriculture regarding this?
The first thing is that yes, it is feasible. And as I told you that these 7 sources of growth that we have suggested, government in the last 6 years has brought about large number of initiatives at every stage. I told you, for example, new market reforms. Before that, we had ENAM, Electronic National Agriculture Market. We have also amended the APMC Acts. So there have been a lot of market initiatives. Second, we have given new varieties to the farmers so that productivity can grow. Then we have given them new methods of reducing cost of cultivation. For example, soil health card. It's called universal soil health. India is the only country in the world where a soil health card based on the sample test is given to every farmer. We are now focusing on micro irrigation. When you use a micro irrigation, the water is saved by 30 to 50%. Productivity increases. India today has got 12 million hectares under micro irrigation. It was only 9 million hectares before. Procurement has increased. And under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have now created what is called Agriculture Infrastructure Fund of the size of 1 lakh crore. Similarly, Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Fund, Fishery Infrastructure Fund. So now more money is being given so that infrastructure is built. What is infrastructure in agriculture? Better markets, better storage system, better cold storage system, better transportation system. So all these things have been put into a system, and all the irrigation projects that have been pending for a long time, the government is completing those things. So we are confident that we will achieve doubling of farmers' income by 2022. Now, what is the current status? I will not be able to tell you because it is the third party, not we. Third party is NSSO, who will again conduct a survey and tell us. So that will be done and we'll come to know. So you can only say so much that we can believe that the income will double because government has made major interventions relating to production, relating to markets, relating to risk management, like Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, for example, strengthening of infrastructure through the Atmanirbhar Bharat package. So all these initiatives are all in accordance with the recommendations of the DFI committee, and therefore we can believe that the incomes will double. Whether it is actually doubled, it will depend upon, the result will come only after the survey is conducted. Then we shall await that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last 2 questions. Jordan, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, myself, Jordan, sir, from IRI Pusa, sir.
Okay.
Happy to listen to you, sir. Sir, one of the questions they are asking in mock interviews, like most of them, they are asking regarding the farm loss, sir. So, in case of farm loss, so how do we address these issues, and how, as a civil servant, if you are there, then what you will do so that the problem will be resolved amicably? So, how do we answer to that, sir?
Yeah, see, only thing is that the perception has to change. Today, the perception is lack of trust between the government and the farmers in protest. So the answer is that we need to convince the farmers to come to the negotiation table. If the farmers don't have trust in us, in the government, for example, maybe they have trust in somebody else. There could be third parties. There could be some opinion makers, media, intellectuals, other parties. So they have to be taken to confidence and they go and talk to the farmers, and then the farmers come to the negotiating table and government assures them that whatever you say, we will take that into consideration. So as a civil servant, your job should be to find those people in whom the farmers have a trust, in whom they can confide. And it is they who were to serve as a bridge between the protesting parties and the government agencies. Now, what is happening? The farmers are saying, first you withdraw those laws, and then only I'll come to you. That is the hitch today. But government, once it has passed the law, it may not be appropriate to take it back, because if it takes it back, then there can be similar protests on every issue. Normally, in a democracy, parliament is supreme. If parliament, where parliamentarians are the voice of the people, have voted to pass that act, then it should be a finality. If we suppose withdraw that, there can be a tendency for every section of the society to protest against every law that the parliament passes. That is not good in the long-term interest of democracy. So the only way is that yes, law has been passed and you feel that there are some inadequacies, so let us negotiate. So how do we convince the farmers as a civil servant to not to stand on ego, and that keep your mind open and then come to the negotiating table? And therefore, that trust can be generated by using other people who are trusted by farmers, who are trusted by the society. I think that's what you should be able to answer. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you,
sir.
Thank you, sir. Sagar, you have a additional question. This would be the
Yes,
last
sir.
question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. Sir, for the redressal mechanism, we have given power towards the SDM. So this is done in order to for a quicker resolution mechanisms, etc. But isn't it against the principle of separation of power given in the Constitution?
What power has been suppressed? See, what does Constitution say? Constitution is saying equality of law, equality before law, right? Now in this law, we can have a judicial system, we can have an executive system. Now here under our laws, we have given that negotiating responsibility, arbitration responsibility to the executive magistrates. That means at the first stage, if there is any dispute between the two parties, the farmers and the buyer, for example, the trader, the SDM as an executive magistrate of the subdivision is empowered to constitute a body who will then negotiate between the parties and try to settle the problem. If that is not settled, then SDM takes it up as a executive court decision, court process. Then he decides as a court. That is the second stage. If the farmers or any of the parties are not happy with the order of the SDM, they can file an appeal before the deputy DC or the collector. If still they are not happy, then they have got the freedom to go to the court. Because the original right of anybody to approach the judicial court cannot be taken away. High courts have got original jurisdiction. So constitutionally, when we are saying we need to give people a legal opportunity to resolve their problems, the law does not take away, this particular act does not take away that right. But as I told you, instead of directly going to the judicial courts, we are taking to the executive courts, because the process here is less burdensome. It is more easy compared to the judicial process. However, finally, one is not stopped from going to the judicial courts, because high courts have got original jurisdictions. Anybody can go anywhere. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. There was one person who wanted to ask a question in Kannada, sir, if you allow.
Yeah, please go ahead.
ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳೋದೇ ಕೇಳಿ ಮೊದಲು.
ಸರ್, ಈಗ ಧಾನ್ಯಗಳ ಸಂಗ್ರಹ ಅಪಾರವಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಗೊತ್ತು ಸರ್. ಆದ್ರೂನು ಈ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಸಿವಿನಿಂದ ಸಾಯ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥವ್ರ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ. ಈ ತರದ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಗೆ ನಾವು UPSC IAS ಆಫೀಸರ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾವ ತರದ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅಂತ.
ಈಗ ಹಸಿವು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಫುಡ್ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿ, ಆಹಾರ ಸುರಕ್ಷತೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆಹಾರ ಸುರಕ್ಷತೆ ಅದರ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನು? ಫುಡ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅಗ್ರಿಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ FAO ಅವರು ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆಹಾರ ಸುರಕ್ಷತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ 3 ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ: ಅವೈಲೇಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಆಕ್ಸೆಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಿಲಿಟಿ. ಅವೈಲೇಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೊದಲು ಆಹಾರ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ಇರಬೇಕು. ಎರಡನೇದು ಆಕ್ಸೆಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ ಸ್ಥಳದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಆಹಾರ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಹಾರ ಸಿಗಬೇಕು. ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಗೋಡಾವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಆಹಾರ ಇದೆ, ಸಂಗ್ರಹಣೆ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಗೋದಾಮುಗಳಿವೆ, ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಹುಬ್ಬಳ್ಳಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕಲಬುರಗಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಬೆಳಗಾವಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಚಿತ್ರದುರ್ಗ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ನನ್ನ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಒಂದು 100 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ಇದೆ. ಆ ಹಳ್ಳಿಗೆ ಅದು ತಲುಪೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ರಸ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಸಾಗಾಣಿಕೆ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಮಾರಾಟಗಾರ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದೂರಿನ ಗುಡ್ಡ ಇದ್ದಂಗೆ ಅದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಮೂರನೇದು ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಿಲಿಟಿ. ಆಯ್ತು, ನಾವು ಹಳ್ಳಿಗೆ ತಂದು ಕೊಟ್ವಿ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಅದರ ಬೆಲೆ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ 25 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕಿಲೋ ಇದೆ. ನನ್ಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಆದಾಯ ಕೇವಲ 10 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಇದೆ ಒಂದು ದಿವಸಕ್ಕೆ. ನಾನು ಹೆಂಗ್ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ? ಅರ್ಧ ಕಿಲೋಗಿಂತ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ನನ್ನ ಕುಟುಂಬಕ್ಕೆ 1 ಕಿಲೋ ಬೇಕು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಲ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಅವೈಲೇಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಆಕ್ಸೆಸಿಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಅಫೋರ್ಡಬಿಲಿಟಿ, ಈ 3 ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಏನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು? ಮೊದಲು ಜನರ ಆದಾಯವನ್ನ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಸ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಪರ್ಚೇಸಿಂಗ್ ಪವರ್, ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಸಾಮರ್ಥ್ಯವನ್ನ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಉದ್ಯೋಗ ಅವಕಾಶಗಳನ್ನ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿಸಿ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಸಾಮರ್ಥ್ಯವನ್ನ ಒದಗಿಸ್ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಎರಡನೇದೇನು? ಪಡಿತರ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ, ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಬಹಳ ಮಜಬೂತಾಗಿದೆ. ಈ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? ಕಡಿಮೆ ದರದಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರಿಗೆ ವಿತರಣೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಈಗ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ 1 ರೂಪಾಯಿಗೆ ಕಿಲೋ ಅಕ್ಕಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ರೈತರಿಂದ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡಿದ ಬೆಲೆ ಎಷ್ಟು? 1 ಕಿಲೋಗೆ 19 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀವಿ. ನಾವು ಗ್ರಾಹಕರಿಗೆ 1 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ನು 18 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂತು? ಇದನ್ನ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಭರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ರೈತರಿಗೂ ಬೆಲೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು, ಗ್ರಾಹಕರಿಗೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ದರದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಬೆಲೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಭರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಈಗ ಗೋಧಿ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಜನರಿಂದ ಖರೀದಿ ಮಾಡಿ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರಗಳಿಗೆ 3 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕಿಲೋದಿಂದ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ 15 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಆಗ್ಲೇ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಭರಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತು, ಲಾಸ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ 3 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಇದ್ದುದನ್ನ 1 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಕೆಲವು ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಪುಕ್ಕಟೆಯಾಗಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಮತ್ತು ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರಗಳು ಬಡವರಿಗೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ದರದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗುವಂತೆ ಈ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆನ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಆದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಕೆಲ ಜನರು ಹಸಿವಿನಿಂದ ಬಳಲ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಅದರ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನು? ನಮ್ಮ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದೋ ತ್ರುಟಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಒಬ್ಬ ಜಿಲ್ಲಾಧಿಕಾರಿಯಾಗಿ, ಒಬ್ಬ ತಹಸೀಲ್ದಾರ್ನಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಈ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪಾಲಿಸಿಗಳನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಒಬ್ಬ ಜಿಲ್ಲಾಧಿಕಾರಿಯಾಗಿ ಅಥವಾ ಉಪ ವಿಭಾಗಾಧಿಕಾರಿಯಾಗಿ, ತಹಸೀಲ್ದಾರ್ನಾಗಿ, ಬಿಡಿಒನಾಗಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು? ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಕಾನೂನು ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಆ ಪಡಿತರ ಚೀಟಿ ದೊರಕಿದೆನಾ? PDS ಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ವಾ, ಅದು ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ ನಂತರ ಏನು ನಮ್ಮ ರಾಷನ್ ಶಾಪ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅವನು ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಅಥವಾ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬೆಲೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನ? ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವ ದಿವಸ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು ಆ ದಿವಸ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಈ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದು ಒಬ್ಬ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಯ ಕೈಲಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಮಂತ್ರಿ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, MLA ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಒಬ್ಬ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಯಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಯಾವ ಕಾನೂನುಗಳನ್ನ ಅಳವಡಿಸಿಕೊಂಡಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನ ನಿರ್ದಿಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಕಾರ್ಯಗತ ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ ನಮ್ದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಏನಿದೆ? ಲೆಜಿಸ್ಲೇಚರ್ ಇದೆ, ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಜುಡಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇದೆ, ಮೂರನೇದು ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟಿವ್ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಂಗ. ಸೊ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಂಗದ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥಿತ ಒಂದು ಸಂಬಂಧ ಹೊಂದಿದ ನಂತರ ಈ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಏನು ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಕಾರ್ಯಗತ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ ನಮ್ದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಅಥವಾ ಯಾರೋ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವನೋ ಒಬ್ಬ ಗುಂಡ ಬಂದು ಕಚ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾನೂನು ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಸರಿಯಾಗಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಷ್ಟೇ ಅರ್ಥ. ಜನರಿಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ತೊಂದರೆ ಇರಲಾರದಂತೆ ಕಾನೂನಿನ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಸುವ್ಯವಸ್ಥಿತವಾಗಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ದೊರಕಬೇಕಾದ್ದು ಸಿಗಬೇಕು. ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪ್ರದೇಶಗಳು ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಹಳ್ಳಿಗೆ ರಸ್ತೆ ಇರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಮಳೆಗಾಲ ಬಂದು ಬ್ರಿಡ್ಜ್ ಕೆಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ, ಇಂಥವು ಕೆಲವು ತೊಂದರೆ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಸರಿಪಡೋದು ಪಡಿಸೋದು ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ, ಆದ್ಯ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ. ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು. ಸರಿನಾ?
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸರ್.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. In fact, very heartening to listen Kannada from you. And I must say that there were many questions raised on the chat box, but 99% of the questions were answered in the details that you give through your answers in the other questions. So extremely enlightening, extremely enriching an experience to listen from you and to the answers, sir. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for all the details. And at no point we felt we were listening to a larger lecture. Rather, it was an interaction through much more understanding that every time you delivered. So extremely enriching, sir. We would only request if sometime you come down to Bangalore, if you can make time for us. A larger audience here also would be able to listen to you. Thanking you once again for the time, especially it's very late in the night and after a very busy day of the start of the week. For this time, thank you so much, sir. On behalf of the entire team at India for IAS, on behalf of Srinivas sir, Kedar sir, our chairman, it's extremely heartening, and thank you so much. We wish this association continues and you wish to guide a lot of young aspirants, sir.
Thank you, Prashant, for your kind words. Thank you all the young friends. It was my pleasure. I too enjoyed sharing with you. You are welcome anytime. I certainly look forward to the opportunity to see you all at Bangalore. And thank you, Srinivas, who has been asking me for a long time to join, and he's very much committed, I find, to the Karnataka boys and girls. So thank you, everybody. So I wish you the very best. Keep working, keep reading, and keep improving upon yourself. Getting into civil service is one thing, and after you have got, to remain a civil servant is another thing. Civil servant, there are two words. The Prime Minister has called himself as the Pradhan Sevak. That means principal Sevak of the country. So we as civil servants also must first consider ourselves as Sevaks. And civil means being ethical, moral, compassionate, caring with the people. We are meant for the people. So I would advise you all that please inculcate these habits right now. And that will come provided you keep your minds open and listen to all kinds of people, where your mind becomes compassionate, caring. Knowledge is one thing, but how you deploy that knowledge is another thing. It's very nice to see these days that a lot of boys and girls from rural areas are highly aspirational to get into civil services. Earlier, it was only some elites who were able to do it. So that way, I think India is showing that it has changed so much for the better. And you must focus on how to improve your personalities. Reading, communication, physical fitness, all these things are equally important. So that you should do it right now. That means you must be confident that I can do it. Right now, just to share a personal example, Yeah. Okay. I was just telling you that how you must be very confident of yourself that yes, you can make it. Because you must strongly believe that if I work sincerely and hard, nothing is impossible. You have seen the examples of our Olympians. How the simple boys and girls from remote areas have made India proud. We have seen several examples like that. You must have heard of Nandurbar collector. You know, that boy who is now collector Nandurbar in tribal district of Maharashtra. He's on videos, you must have seen circulations. Born in a tribal family to a single mother. How he had that aspiration that I should become something. He became a doctor, got an IAS, he's a collector in the same district, and he has done the best work during the COVID time. The whole country recognizes him. So nothing is impossible. However, you must start, as I told you, prepare yourself to do something after you have become. And don't be demoralized if you don't get it. My strong belief is that for all of us, there's something awaiting in this world, in this country. We must try our best. If you get this, good. If you don't get, I'll do something else. With this knowledge that you would have acquired, with so much of competitive spirit you would have acquired, you can be the best anywhere. So I wish you all the best. As they say in Kaya Kave Kailasa. If you do your work sincerely, you are bound to see Kailasa, in one way or the other form. So do that. And I wish you all the best and Godspeed. And the final word I will tell you, which my principal used to tell me in Sainik School, Bijapur. Whatever you become in life, don't forget the soil you come from. That means don't forget your parents, your brothers, sisters, relatives, your villagers. That is very important. Just because you become something, you should not forget them. So it's very important that you keep with these people. Only then you can be a good officer. VP Singh, the former Prime Minister in 1989 told, I don't need civil servants with brains only. I need civil servants with heart. Yes, you need brain, but you need more of heart. So you must carry this brain and heart together. In fact, less brain and more heart. Then you'll be a very good officer. So thank you, Prashant.
Thank you,
and
sir.
Thank you, all of you.
Those closing words were very, very thoughtful and something which can inspire any young aspirant who's looking at, and especially for those standing at the door to face an interview. That was something really very inspiring. As a small data to share, for the first time, we have a large number of aspirants who are giving interview who are from agricultural background, sir. With agriculture optional also. So probably results by end of September this time should be a matter to celebrate. Among the group who have attended the session, we had 2 students who are visually impaired. They have personally messaged telling to express our deep regards and thanks. It was very inspiring. I wish to communicate that to you also, sir. Thank you so much. It was extremely inspiring and hope to see you soon, very soon, sir. Thank you so much and a very
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Srinivas, thank you. ನೀವು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ
ಸರ್
ಅವ್ರ ಹಿತದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ಪಾಪ ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಇರ್ತೀರಾ.
ಹೌದು ಸರ್.
ಬರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಾಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದ. ಶ್ರೀನಿವಾಸ್.
ಇಡೀ ನಮ್ಮ ಓಲ್ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಕುತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಸರ್ ಇವತ್ತು. ಬಹಳ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲ ಸಿವಿಲ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಆಸ್ಪಿರೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ರಿಯಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಒಂದು ಸುದಿನ ಸರ್ ಇವತ್ತು.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ. ನನಗೆ ಹೇಳಿ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಪ್ರಶಾಂತ್. ನಿಮಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಧನ್ಯವಾದ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. Bye. Bye all boys and girls. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much to all of you who were present in the session. Have a good night. Good day.